And my father delivered the bicycle that Wednesday evening on his way home up the canyon. They contacted the store either Thursday or Friday and said, hey, we got the wrong color. It's not the one that we wanted. And my dad said, no problem. I'll stop by and do the exchange this evening. And that's when they said, well, we won't be home until after dinner or whatever. And so I got assigned to do the bicycle exchange and try not to arrive until after 7:30, after they would have arrived home from dinner. So my father had been to the address, obviously 2 evenings before, and he gave me directions on how to get in. He said, you're just going to pull up this long, winding driveway. There'll be a gate at the end. Stop before the gate. There'll be a bush on your left. And hidden in the bushes, you just have to feel around for it with your hand, will be a button. You push that button and that will open the gate. And I remember driving in, and when I delivered a lot of bicycles, Anthony Quinn's home in Bel Air, and a lot of other interesting places, there would often be like a pressure plate, or like in the gas stations at the time you drive in, it would go ding, ding. That would let the guy know in the gas station to come out and wash your windshield and check your oil and pump your gas for you back in the old days. So I was looking for something to drive over that would trigger the gate to close behind me. So I looked pretty carefully. There was no pressure plate. There was no wires or anything to drive over. I just drove in, and I saw in the mirror as I was driving in that the gate just closed behind me. So I think after 60 seconds, it just closed. It was a less expensive gate. And I pulled up to the garage and opened up the van and took the correct colored bicycle out and parked it in the garage. The garage doors were open and the bicycle was in plain sight. So I took the bicycle out, put the other bicycle in, put them in the right location. So now I needed to let somebody know that I had done this. So I walked out around from the garage and across the driveway between the 2 parked cars and through a little gate and like a split rail fence with a gate, and then past a little wishing well and across the lawn and some flagstone stairs, or to a flagstone front porch, and with a white door. I think it might have been like a Dutch door or whatever. Rang the doorbell, and a gentleman came to the door. I didn't know who he was. I didn't recognize him. But later on, we learned it was Jay Sebring. And he seemed friendly. He had a black shirt on, kind of unbuttoned maybe one extra button. Had a green bottle in his hand, might have been some kind of a inexpensive wine, like small, like a Spinata or something like that, like 8, 10, 12 ounce bottle. And I just told him that I was a delivery boy from the bicycle store, that I had picked up, as requested, the bicycle that they wanted to exchange, and dropped off the correct bicycle, left him in the garage. And he said, yeah, is everything okay? And so we exchanged maybe 25, less than 50 words. And he thanked me, and off I went, got back in my van. And it was easier to open the gate leaving because the button on the inside of the property was much more prominent. So you just drive over and push that button, and then drive out the gate, knowing again that it would close automatically behind you.
The tentative identification of the persons are as follows: Sharon Polanski, Jay Sebring, Abigail Folger, Wojtek Frykowski, and another man who is unknown.
For me, the evening and the late night of August 8, 1969, fortunately for me, ended somewhat uneventfully. Left Janice's house, I don't know, 12:30, maybe 12:45, 1 o'clock in the morning, and drove back out Sunset Boulevard and then went up Benedict Canyon. So I was probably driving up Benedict Canyon about the time the murderers were driving up the canyon or heading up Portola and washing their car or washing themselves. And we lived further up Benedict Canyon, just above Portola off of Hutton Drive. So drove home that night, I don't know, 12:30, 1 o'clock. And didn't think anything of the evening before. It was really, for me, a pretty typical night. And then the next morning, I got in the van, which my dad had left me the van and ridden his bicycle to the bike shop. As he'd ridden his bicycle home the night before, he often did that. It was about 5 miles. So I had the van the next morning. It's a Saturday. It's right in the middle of August in the summer. So I'm going to drive back out to Brentwood, visit with Janice, swimming pool, tennis court, maybe head to the beach. And as I'm driving down the canyon, I listened to the radio. I had the radio on all the time back then. And the music was interrupted by news about, and the details were just coming out, multiple fatalities, murder, Beverly Hills estate, and just some macabre details coming out.
In a scene described by one investigator as reminiscent of a weird religious rite, 5 persons, including actress Sharon Tate, were found dead at the home of Miss Tate and her husband, screen director Roman Polyansky. Miss Tate, who starred in Valley of the Dolls, was 8 months pregnant and was found in a bikini-tight nightgown.
Obviously, it was big news. I listened intently, but I didn't make a connection with where I had been the evening before. And then when I arrived out at Brentwood, waiting for me in the driveway of the home on Rockingham was Janice, and she said, "Dennis, did you hear about the murders?" I said, "Yeah, I listened to them on the radio." She said, "Call your dad right away. Your dad wants to talk to you." So I went inside and called the bike shop. And my dad said, "Did you hear about the murders on the radio?" And I said, "Yes, I did." He said, "That's where you delivered the bicycle last night, and the murders occurred last night." And I said, "Wow." It said Beverly Hills. He said, "Yeah, I know, but that's Beverly Hills address. It's actually just outside the Beverly Hills city limit." And we were very aware of that because growing up, my address was Beverly Hills, California. When they had zip codes came out, there was 90210 was the zip code. But we weren't actually in the city of Beverly Hills. It was called Beverly Hills Post Office address. We knew that Cielo was outside of the Beverly Hills city limit. So that kind of threw me off a little bit. So I said, "Oh gosh, Dad, better call the police right away and let them know what I know." And my dad said, "Not so fast, son. Let's talk about this. And this is really serious." And I said, "Dad, what kind of a son do you think you raised? Somebody that would have possibly some helpful information and out of fear or something like that wouldn't go to the police and tell them what we do?" My dad said, "Yeah, okay, I guess you're right. Yes, that's the right thing to do. And we should always do the right thing." So I called West Los Angeles Police Department and told them that I had some information, that I had been to the scene of the murders the night before, and could I speak to one of the investigators? And I got a guy on the phone. He said, yeah, I'm the guy to talk to. I'm Sergeant so-and-so, I don't remember his name. And I told him that I delivered the bicycle, about what time, that I had spoken to a gentleman. I think at that point, I don't think I realized who the gentleman was that I spoke to, and gave him a little timeline and some action, whatever. He took it all down and said, "Okay, you'll be hearing from us." Never heard from them again. And a couple weeks later, and of course, nobody knew who committed the murders. We didn't know for a long time. Then there was murders 2 nights later. There have been another rash of murders in West Los Angeles in the year, weeks and months before this. Just an inordinate amount of murder and violence in sort of the West Los Angeles greater area. And so I think everybody was on edge. I think it was a while before, maybe some days before they drew a connection between the LaBianca murders and the murders at the Tate residence. So about 2 weeks later, me and my buddies, we're all graduated from high school. It's the last summer before going away to college. Borrowed the delivery van from my family for a 2-week drive around trip of California. So my mom made some American flag curtains for the windows, and we were kind of all American boys, but we were kind of like, we're going to play like hippie band. And we drove up to Mammoth and did some backpacking and onto Lake Tahoe, and then on to Yosemite and San Francisco, Mount Tam and Haight-Ashbury, and then drove down the coast of the Big Sur all the way down to Newport Beach and spent a few days in Newport with a buddy of mine that had a fifth friend who had a fantastic sailboat there. And so at the end of this trip, I called my dad from my friend's house. I said, thanks for the last 10, 12 days or so in the van, and we're going to be heading home tomorrow. And my dad said, about what time? And I said, I've got to drop some guys off. Probably be there about 2 o'clock, something like that. My dad said, Dennis, it's important. Come straight to the bike shop when you're done. If you're not going to be there anywhere close to 2 o'clock, give me a call. He didn't say anything other than that. But apparently what happened was, while I was off on my drive around, some police detectives came into the bike shop, and they were questioning my dad. They had a receipt that they'd found in a drawer at the murder scene, where Abigail Folger had bought the bicycle, the one that my dad had delivered on Wednesday. So they were asking him questions like, who was with her when she bought the bicycle? What did they look like? Did they look like they were under stress or strain? Was there a third person hanging around? And they were asking my dad all kinds of questions about Wednesday afternoon. And at some point, my dad said, I just find it very curious that you're asking all these questions about what I saw on Wednesday afternoon when you haven't bothered to call my son back, who was there at the murder scene delivering a bicycle at 7:30, 8 o'clock that night. And they go, what? The what? So apparently the message never got through. So they said, well, we want to talk to your son. So I remember arriving at the bike shop, and I park in the back and walk up to the front of the bike shop. My dad's there. And he said, son, you want to meet these two gentlemen. So they're two guys dressed in suits, and they introduced themselves as police detectives. And at the gas station right across the street, they had a car parked. It was like some Chrysler product with the black sidewall tires and the quarter hubcaps, looked like a plainclothes cop car. So they invited me to get into the car with them. I got in the back seat, and they said, so we understand that you talked to Jay Sebring the night of the murder, shortly before the murders. And at this point, I don't think I knew whether the murders occurred at 10 o'clock or 9:45 or midnight. I wasn't quite sure of the timeline. And maybe the investigators didn't know the exact timeline at that point either. So I said, yeah. And they said, how do you know it's Jay Sebring? And I said, well, I've seen a lot of pictures, whatever. I know it's Jay Sebring. And they said, okay, well, just for confirmation. And they reached over the back of the front seat and handed me a picture. And they said, so this is a picture of Jay Sebring, just for the record. Would you please identify him? And I said, no, that's not the guy I talked to. They, I'm sorry. We have the wrong picture. They handed me another big picture. And I said, that's not the guy I talked to either. And they said, oh gosh, somehow there's some confusion here. So they handed me like a binder that had like 6 pictures on a page. And I'm flipping through, and I don't know, page 3 or 4. I go, oh, that's the guy I talked to. And they looked at each other and they said, okay, yeah, that's Jay Sebring. So they were just trying to see if I was maybe making a story up or whatever.